Okay, welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting in person and live streamed electronically on Tuesday, March 17th. We will open the meeting with our land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. So the first item of business on our agenda this evening is to appoint a chair. So I will ask if there's anyone that has any interest in this position or anyone that wants to nominate someone for this position. I'd nominate Jim. Is there anyone else that might be interested?
No, I'll second Jim's.
I just think that's anyone.
I'll nominate Gerald. He does such a great job on council. I think he's gonna be the leader.
We're trying. I'm okay with Jim doing it.
Okay.
I think I'd love to hear his voice loud and present.
Okay.
Okay.
If you don't want to, then I'll.
I'm here for moral support, okay?
Yes, comes with free snakes.
Okay. So moved by Karen Jennings and seconded by Tom May that Jim Abbas be appointed as the chair of the Township of Montague's Committee of Adjustment. All in favor? I'll take the big chair, Mr. Jim Abbas.
But now you get to keep the chair.
Big chair.
You have to come and sit up here with me. I've got you. We've got your special agenda all highlighted because you really got ourselves down to. We'll move this along. Here's your note.
Yeah, I seen that. Thanks, Gerald.
I've got it. We're good. Okay, yep, you're good. So the next item will be the introductions. You're basically gonna be reading everything that's in yellow.
Okay. Purpose of this meeting, public meeting, is to hear the following application for a minor variance. I have to read the A26-001 MacDonald. The committee is charged with making a decision on the application noted on this agenda. The decision will be based on both oral and written input received and understandings gained. The four key factors on which decisions are based include: is the application generally in keeping with the intent of the township's official plan? Is the application generally in keeping with the intent of the township's zoning bylaw? Is the application desirable for the appropriate development or use of the site? Is this application minor in nature and scope? The junior planner will provide a brief overview of the details of the file. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to explain the need for the variance. Then any person or public body in opposition to and then in favor of the application will be heard. If you wish to be notified of the committee's decision with respect to the below listed application, you must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment at the municipal.
You don't have to read that.
Okay, thank you. Or you must sign the attendance list provided in the evening's meeting. The Secretary and Treasurer must provide notice of the committee's decision to all those who request a copy. Is that it then for now? Okay. Disclosure of the peculiar and or conflict of interest in general nature thereof. That's it there.
And then we're gonna move into the adoption.
Adoption of the agenda.
So we'll need a mover and a seconder.
Have somebody move it? Karen. And a seconder? Jeremy, yes. Okay, Karen.
So we're gonna move this here. That.
That the agenda for the Committee of Adjustment meeting dated March 17th, 2026 be adopted as presented.
All in favor?
All in favor? Read this one.
Yeah.
Committee of Adjustment minutes dated September 24th, 2024.
A while. Need a mover.
And a mover and a seconder for
I'll
that.
move that.
Brian?
Second
Tom will second.
We were at it, eh? You
Yeah,
remember?
long time ago.
A while back, yeah.
That the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting dated September 24th, 2024 be approved as presented this date. All in favor? Am I supposed to vote in this one?
No.
Okay. Read this one.
Yep.
File number A26-001, MacDonald, 747 Richardson Road. Junior planner, file review, applicant comments, oral and written submissions, decision of committee. And now we can have Chloe, please.
Thank you, Chief.
Let me see.
So the owner of 747 Richardson Road is applying to the Committee of Adjustment for relief from the provision of the township zoning bylaw related to the interior side yard setback for the rural zone. And he's here tonight. The subject property is approximately 0.55 hectares or 1.37 acres in size, and is accessed by township road, Richardson Road. The property is zoned rural, RU. The lands are currently developed with a dwelling serviced by private well and septic system, 3 attached decks, and a small vinyl shed. The minimum interior side yard setback set out for the rural zone is 6 meters. The applicant is seeking relief from this provision to permit the construction of a detached garage a distance of 3 meters from the interior side yard lot line rather than the 6-meter minimum required. The reason for the variance requested is due to the locations of the existing laneway, hydro service trench, underground fiber optic line, and the private well and septic system, all of which are illustrated on the sketch in Appendix B of the report included in your agenda package, making any other location on the property unsuitable for the construction of the proposed detached garage. When evaluating an application for a minor variance, the Planning Act establishes a 4-test rule. So the first test is whether the application generally meets the intent of the policies of the township's official plan. This property is designated as rural in the township's official plan, and the official plan provides that residential uses are permitted within the rural designation. And while the official plan does not specifically speak to buildings accessory to a residence, it does state that rural lands are intended for low-density residential development that complements the character of the rural environment. And this application is consistent with this intent. There are no concerns related to the natural heritage features on the subject lands either. Accordingly, it is staff's opinion that the development proposed complies with the intent of the township's official plan. Moving on to the second test, that is whether the application generally meets the intent of the provisions of the township zoning bylaw. As stated previously, the property is zoned rural. Proposed development complies with the development provisions of the rural zone as it relates to lot coverage and minimum yard setbacks for the front and rear yard, but requires relief from the minimum interior side yard setback provision. The intent of a minimum interior side yard setback is to ensure that there's sufficient spacing between buildings on adjacent properties. As the neighboring property's dwelling is set approximately 24 meters from the impacted shared interior side lot line, it is staff's opinion that the impact of reducing the required side yard setback from 6 meters to 3 meters for the construction of this detached garage will not result in insufficient spacing between buildings. It is further proposed that the recommended development agreement include provisions that the proposed detached garage is not permitted to be used for residential occupancy without approval from the township of Montague. It's staff opinion that the development proposed complies with the intent of the township zoning bylaw. And moving to the third test, this is whether the application is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the site. The subject property is currently developed with a dwelling on private services, 3 attached decks, and a small vinyl shed, as I've mentioned before. The applicant wishes to build a detached garage that will result in a 0.13% lot coverage increase, well within the maximum lot coverage provision. A detached garage is an appropriate and complementary accessory structure to a building. So it is staff's opinion that the development proposed is desirable and an appropriate use. The fourth and final test is whether the application is minor in nature and scope. The applicant is not proposing to change the use of the subject lands, and the development proposed is deemed to be non-impactful on neighboring properties or to the community as a whole. Notice of the application was circulated to all landowners within 60 meters of the subject lands, as well as the prescribed agencies under the Planning Act. A comment in support of the approval of the minor variance was received from the neighbor that shares the impacted northern interior side lot line with the subject lands. This was received after the circulation and finalization of the report that's in your agenda package. But the comment in essence stated that the neighbor was supportive of the approval of this minor variance and the proposed development, as it will serve as a privacy block between the two properties. In addition to this, Rideau Valley Conservation Authority has advised that their office has no concerns or requirements for this minor variance application. As of the date of this report, no other comments have been received. It's staff's opinion that the development proposed is minor in nature and scope. So as this meets the 4 tests set out in the Planning Act, staff's recommendation for this application is to permit the construction of a detached garage a distance of 3 meters from the interior side yard lot line, rather than the 6 meters required under section 12.1 subsection 2 of zoning bylaw 4070/2024, with the following conditions. So the first being that the variance is solely for relief from the interior side yard setback provision between the proposed detached garage and northernmost interior side yard lot line. Second, the minor variance is approved based on the sketch submitted with the application. 3, the proposed detached garage is not permitted to be used for human habitation unless the owner obtains the necessary approvals and permits from the Township of Montague. 4, that the applicant is required to enter into a development agreement with the Township of Montague and have same registered on title at their expense prior to commencing development. And finally, number 5, the applicant is required to obtain all required building permits from the Township of Montague. Following the committee's decision this evening, there will be a 20-day appeal period. If no appeals are received within this time frame, the decision of the committee will be deemed final and binding. So we'll open it to any questions if there are any.
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
I've been on the committee for a number of years. And when I looked up what the committee, how we were set up originally and whatnot, the committee is to provide a flexible mechanism for the property owner to seek relief of zoning regulations that may be impractical or unnecessarily restrictive on their project. How is this? When I went out and visited the site, no one was home at the day. Why could the garage not be moved right up to the driveway? The driveway just widened in that area a little bit. It doesn't interfere with the hydro or the internet cable. And that way they wouldn't even have needed a minor variance.
Would I be able to comment on that or not?
We're gonna allow
Okay.
comments from you shortly.
So
Well, the staff's opinion that, the existing laneway was a valid, reason that they couldn't, meet the provision of that side lot line.
like when I was there, like all you would have to do is right where the garage is going to be, is just bring that out a little bit further, which is just a minor thing rather than not get a minor variance.
Yeah,
Because this, I don't see it being a impractical or unnecessarily restrictive what he's requesting for, in my
Right.
opinion.
well, I mean, in my communications with Mr. MacDonald, he didn't, state that he would want to move that driveway. And that was an option he was considering for him. He wanted to place the garage, in that place. And looking at the other, factors that are on this property, that are kind of restricting where he can put that garage, I felt in my professional opinion that that was, a valid reason that he couldn't place it anywhere else. And why that would be the only suitable location for that garage. So, I made that judgment call and that was my professional call that,
Like even if he brought it 2.4 meters without changing the driveway at all, move it 2.4 meters ahead, then it's only 0.6 of a meter that he needs a variance on.
yeah. And, with that, when looking at the existing conditions as well as like kind of what that impact would be and doing my first planning analysis on that, looking at the 4 tests and whether or not I felt that this would be minor in nature, my call at the end of it was that reducing that from 6 meters to 3 meters would be, extremely minor in nature. Especially because, the reason for that side yard, setback was to do with spacing of houses, ensuring that there's adequate space for things like fire access or access to the property. And with his neighbor's house being, at approximately 24 meters from that lot line, kind of combined with the fact that there is existing restrictions on the property, like the laneway, which I felt, in my opinion, was a valid restriction, kind of looking at both those together. I made the call that, in my opinion, that this was still good planning and that, I could support this minor variance, so. Yeah, so that was kind of my thinking towards that, he could, I suppose, if he had wanted to move that existing laneway, but I didn't feel that was, necessary, or that I felt it would be.
Well, I would have thought it would have been a lot cheaper for Mr. MacDonald to widen the laneway a little bit than the cost of the minor variance and the cost of getting it added to the deed, registered on the deed. I mean, that's to me, minor variance is when you can't do it or it's really impractical. Maybe Mr. MacDonald can answer why it's very impractical to widen the driveway enough to move the edge ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, he can speak to that, when he kind of has his
Okay.
to that, but yeah, so it was my professional opinion that it would be impractical for him to move that laneway, and given the minor impact of reducing that side lot.
Or you don't really have to move the laneway, you just have to make it a little wider in that one spot.
Yeah, well, that was my opinion, so Mr. MacDonald can answer that as well, but, yeah, that was the call I made, and,
Okay, well, that's my concerns.
Anybody else have anything?
No, okay.
I can see why that he, this is minor in scope. I understand why, and, if this is the route, I don't see any issues with moving it. The neighbor has no issues with it. It is more work to be able to go through this process, but I don't see there being any real issues other than the fact that it was one more step he had to go through. You guys had to approve it. Other than that, I don't see there being a fundamental issue with it. It's just, I see what Tom's saying. He could have potentially avoided it, should you have decided to move it in. But other than that, I think the report was great. I understand what you did here. The neighbors aren't having an issue. I don't see any cause for concern. So other than that, I think it was a great report.
Nothing else?
So I can say that I will support staff's recommendation as well. I understand what Tom is saying. The second part where you said even if you moved it forward, you'd have to do a minor variance for 0.6. So whether we do it for 3 or 0.6, I mean, you'd still have to do it, so,
But I mean, you only have to move the driveway 0.6.
but
That's not even a load of gravel.
I will accept staff's recommendation on that.
So,
I don't want to say applicant fee, but-
would the applicant like to speak now?
Yes, please. Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Ryan MacDonald, owner of 747 Richardson Road, and applicant for the minor variance. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time out of their busy schedules to attend this hearing tonight, and happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate. I'd like to open with a quick summary of my property history. The property was purchased in late 2015 from the previous owner, who designed the property, lot layout, and built the current dwelling. The reason for my application today, due to previously established features, such as existing laneway location, underground services such as hydro and fiber optic cable, I'm seeking relief from the interior side yard zoning setback of 6 meters to 3 meters to accommodate a 28-foot deep by 30-foot wide detached garage. The proposed building envelope is mostly cleared via the previous owner and is easily accessible by the existing laneway. Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to read out the letter that was provided by my neighbor. So I'd like to present and submit a signed letter provided by the abutting property owner. This is the shared owner of the property line to which I'm requesting the minor variance. The letter reads, I, Richard Robertson, owner of 733 Richardson Road, do not have any objections to the proposed minor variance listed in application A26-001. I am in favor of the proposed detached garage location as it will serve as a privacy block between two properties. Signed and dated March 12th, 2026. Through the chair, I'd like to briefly respond to the planning report and comments provided by planning staff. Firstly, I'd like to thank planning staff for their help during the pre-consultation and submission process. I agree the minor variance meets the 4 tests required under section 45 of the Planning Act. The proposal maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. The variance is desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land is compatible with surrounding properties. The requested variance is minor in nature and will not create any negative impacts on adjacent properties. I generally support planning staff recommendations and in favor of the following recommendations. Number 1, the variance is solely for relief from interior side yard setback. Recommendation 2, minor variance is approved based on sketch submitted with application. Recommendation 3, proposed detached garage is not permitted for human habitation unless necessary approvals are obtained. And recommendation 5, applicant is required to obtain all required building permits. I do have an objection to recommendation 4, applicant required to enter into a development agreement with the township. Mr. Chairman, I would like to expand on this if I may. At this time, would you like me to address the laneway issue?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So as mentioned, as you're familiar with Montague Township, it's quite rocky. To move the laneway, there is a little bit of a rock shelf that I do not have shown on my sketch, just to the southerly side of the laneway. To do so would likely implement either raising the laneway by a foot over a foot or get into hole ramming some bedrock, which again, it is what it is. And if I were to move the laneway, I would be getting quite close to the underground hydro service, which is in concrete right on the bedrock. So I don't want to get near that if I can avoid it. So further to my comments on condition 4, there are no concerns raised through the planning report that may trigger a development agreement. Development agreements are heavy legal tools typically used for subdivisions and large development where site plan control is required. A development agreement seems disproportionate for a minor accessory building and is not necessary to implement the variance. It is unrelated to the relief requested and would disguise a minor variance condition into site plan control. In addition, a development agreement would duplicate already established regulatory and enforcement systems such as zoning bylaws and the building permit process. As the property owner, I am concerned a development agreement may contain wording that would restrict future lot development and implement controls for future use. A development agreement would be an encumbrance on title for current and future owners, along with adding significant legal and filing costs. Being a benign minor variance application, I do not see the rationale for implementing a development agreement. For these reasons, I respectfully ask for committee support on recommendations 1, 2, 3, and 5. Thank you.
Don't think there's any other oral or written submissions, so I guess you guys can discuss.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, I think the development agreement is a requirement. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, because usually it's what holds you accountable to making sure that you follow the building guidelines, inspections, and that's why they're usually there, if I'm not mistaken. Because if there's a requirement under usual city bylaws, city codes, to make sure that the building is structurally sound, safe and inhabitable, are usable. And that no different than if I would decide to drop a 20-foot shed on my property, I would have to have it inspected.
Correct. So my argument to that would be a simple building permit application. Do they require development agreements?
No, not all building permit applications require development agreements.
Yeah, they are used in planning applications, like consents, minor variance, things like that. And now specifically for this application, we would include it, to ensure that on title, there's a clause stating that human habitation, that the garage can't be, occupied for residential purposes. We know that you don't have that intent, but, should you sell your property and somebody buy it and wish to convert it into an ARU, and not know that they need to get permission from the township on that. This is kind of a way that we can ensure that, things aren't happening with this garage that weren't intended to with this application, right?
Correct.
We're approving this based on the assumption, that it's not gonna be used for human habitation, that you're using it for
Storage.
yeah, whatever you would use your garage for, right? So we just want to ensure that there's some sort of, fail safe almost that, should you sell the property, that someone else doesn't start using it for this purpose, and not know that, perhaps they're not permitted to.
Mr. McDonald, this goes back to Tom's point. If you would want to avoid this, you could always move back 3 meters.
Correct,
So if you'd like to do that, then we wouldn't have to go through this step.
correct.
But because you want the minor variance, this is a mandatory requirement. So
Okay.
we can't waive that and give you the minor variance. So if you would like to not have that, you're more than welcome to move it back in the 3 meters.
It still might be cheaper to move the garage than this.
No, that's okay. If committee requires the development agreement, I'm okay with that. My only concern would be that the wording be specific to the habitation clause and the minor variance setback. So I don't know if that's something committee can put in their notes. Or even if they have ability to do that.
Yeah, well, like, Kirsten and I will be working kind of together as
Okay.
a planning team on this, so I'll be drafting the development agreement, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something that,
Excellent. Yeah, I'm just concerned. I've seen in the past, because I'm in the industry, where development agreements come through and they say you're not allowed any future development on the property, stuff like that.
Oh, no.
So that's
No.
my only concern in regards to it.
yeah, no, there's no intent that this would be overly restricted,
Okay.
it would be related to. the-
Excellent.
For my variance.
Well, if that's it, any more questions from committee? Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, we're gonna be reading this, do you want to read it or do you read it? Okay, I'm gonna read this on behalf of the chair, because it's a lot.
I think he started his word.
Oh, and time is of the essence. We have another meeting starting shortly. So that in the matter of an application under section 45(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended, the minor variance application A26-001 is approved to allow for variance from the requirements of section 12.12 of zoning bylaw 4070-2024 for the lands municipally known as 747 Richardson Road and legally described as part of Lot 7, Concession 1, Township of Montague, County of Lanark, being Part 1 on Plan 27R9428. To reduce the interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 3 meters to permit the construction of a detached garage, subject to the following conditions. So I'm essentially repeating everything that our junior planner read. Number 1, the variance is solely for relief from the interior side yard setback provisions between the proposed detached garage and northernmost interior side yard lot line. Number 2, the minor variance is approved based on the sketch submitted with the application. Number 3, the proposed detached garage is not permitted to be used for human habitation unless the owner obtains the necessary approvals and permits from the Township of Montague. Number 4, the applicant is required to enter into a development agreement with the Township of Montague and to have same registered on title at their expense prior to commencing development. And number 5, the applicant is required to obtain all required building permits from the Township of Montague.
Somebody like to move that? First, Gerald. Thank you. All in favor? All opposed? No. That the Committee of Adjustment meeting dated March 17th, 2026, adjourn at 6 P.M. Need a mover and a second.
I'll move it. Earl.
Brian? Karen, second. All in favor?
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.